and welcome to another episode of Leader Generation, brought to you by Tenlo Radio. I'm your host, Tessa Berg, and today we're joined by the CEO of GreenLeads, Mike Farrell. Hello, Mike. Thanks for joining the show.
All right, Tessa, thank you. Glad to be here.
So today's topic is about lead generation, which is appropriate since the title of our podcast is Leader Generation. And we wanted to explore how to generate more high quality leads. So can you tell us a little bit about GreenLeads and what you do?
Sure thing. So GreenLeads has been around since 2007 in the lead generation business. We also do appointment generation. So lead generation we do is centered around content syndication, promoting that content out to generate those opt-in leads to put into the marketing funnel. And we have the outbound calling folks to do appointment generation. And in both of those instances, we try to encourage our clients to use the intent data that we can get through our intent platform to get better outcomes.
So you said a couple of things in there that are really interesting. I'm familiar with using, content marketing and content in general to engage prospects. Can you tell me a little bit about what does content syndication include?
Sure. Everybody, all the marketers out there, you're generating great content and you're promoting it to your current list. You're getting people to come to your website through Google searches and so forth, using that content. But content syndication is just another way to get that content out to your target audience. So we have a opt-in audience of about 70 million prospects globally. We do this on a global scale. And so we can take your content any client's content based on their target audience, their ICP, whatever those accounts are, what those personas are, and we'll build that outbound list and promote that content to them to get them to a landing page to download that content and obviously fill out the lead form and opt in. So now you have an opt-in lead that marketer can put into their marketing automation system.
So for content syndication, it's all about matching the right person against who the customer is trying to reach, and then exposing the client's content to them via email, via social. Do you use any other channels or?
No, that's it. That's it. And it's it's very effective. It's many marketers will use it to augment what they're doing to generate that top of the funnel, mid funnel leads, because we can do that on a simple contact form. But we also can do what we call highly qualified leads, which is add 3 questions into that lead form so you can gather some more information from that prospect. Obviously, the content has to be interesting enough for someone to want to download that. But that's the whole purpose, is to get your awareness out there, reach a bigger audience than you're reaching on your own, and get those opt-in leads.
You mentioned earlier this concept of intent. How do you know? So for us, the ideal customer profile, persona data is typically static. Like either market research has been conducted or we got feedback from the sales team and we construct those tools, but intent can change at any time. How do you identify a specific prospect's intent or readiness to buy?
Good question. So our lead generation, our content syndication, that's an intent signal, right? These are all intent are signals. So what we do is we have a platform. We can put your ICP, put your personas into this platform with all your keywords, and we can basically put a digital net around your audience and look and monitor all their public, what's going on in the public web. Could be, consuming some articles. It could be on a Reddit board or some kind of message board on a particular, all these different keywords that might be a trigger. Could be attending an event. We would put all those kind of events in there so we can track who's attending an event, who's commenting on Twitter, all the different hashtags. And then we're going to harvest that information so we know not just the company that is showing that signal, but who are the potential people based on your persona that are those signals, could be sending those signals. And we can, and the key is the way to use that and to try to activate those intent signals and those leads is to then go outbound to them with a more personalized message. Whether it's an email subject line or an outbound phone call, we now know what the trigger was. What was it that they were engaging online? So it allows for a better interaction and a better engagement of a conversation, whether that be over the phone or via email. And that's the kind of the best way to use that intent. We don't know where they are in the buyer's journey, right? Until we have that engagement with them and find out where they are.
I love your description of all of these different types of data points that translate into signals, because if somebody were to do that manually, that could take hours just to one, identify all the signals, then to see who's going there, and then you probably still need some sort of tool to scrape attendees or even access to it. With the platform you're using, how long does it take to sort of source all that data together to initiate an intent campaign?
The setup, I could get anybody on a call and do the setup, in a few hours, couple hours, and then once we turn it on, it's going to start monitoring. So within a week, we're going to have some data. We're going to have some intent leads. We typically let it run for about 3 to 4 weeks before we take that all that data and then synthesize it. There's some false positives you got to get out of there. So you're really dealing with a good lead list, and then we can really massage it and really find out what the key triggers are, right? And then strategize on how to activate based on that, what the most likely most valuable triggers are that we're harvesting.
So this really looks at a clear formula to improve lead quality, being instead of just finding a list of people whose names and titles match who you want your prospects to be, take those names and titles and find signals and behaviors that say they actually are ready or somewhere in the process of about to buy. So you can sort of blast it all out or, find actual behaviors and triggers.
Right, exactly. The way the analogy I like to use is for anybody that's likes to go fishing out there, and I know Tess, you like to go, you do that. It's yes. A fish find. It's a sonar detector. It's a fish finder. If you go out in the ocean, it's a big ocean, and you're going to have a nice day in the sun, but you may not catch any fish unless you have a sonar detector to find out where the fish are. This is going to say, hey, you want a cold call list? Here's a list of 1,000 companies. Well, how about if you knew which 150 were showing intent signals, right? Where are you going to spend your time? Mm-hmm. So it's a way to prioritize your time. but it's also is you're going to have better conversations. And what we find is from a lead standpoint, whether it's a lead into a marketing funnel or an appointment, the outcome of those is substantially better, up to 67% improvement in the scoring of those outcomes.
Up to 67% improvement in the scoring.
Yes.
Wow. So we have quite a few colleagues, professionals in the B2B marketing community that are still measuring performance based on quantity. Asking that question, how many leads, how many leads? When you get asked that question, because you can generate a pretty large list and you can run a campaign on LinkedIn and title by target by title and target by company and get large numbers. How do you have that conversation with clients looking for quantity that quality will lead to higher performing outcomes or even higher value, higher retained customers?
I think you want to do both, right? In most cases, the people that are looking for quantity is they're playing the numbers game, right? Marketing and sales is a numbers game to some degree. Yep. So you do have to play the numbers game, but if you're, and ultimately as a marketer, if you're being recognized on your contribution to a sales pipeline or your contribution to the SDR or BDR function, then quantity and quality will help you hit those metrics, those goals. Because it could just be simply that HQL, which is some custom questions in there that's going to make that you have more intelligence about that business, about that person's desire. And then we take it even a step further in content syndication. This is done digitally. Is we can even ask in their permission to call from that prospect. So that really shows intent, right? If that person is downloading your content, consuming your content, and they would be welcome to a phone call, that's a great indication of. So you could do all of it because in all cases there's going to be conversion rates, right? We're gonna if we're doing if we do all these different lead types out simultaneously, MQ, just a straight on MQL is going to give us a higher conversion rate than an HQL than a permission to call, right? But if you do all of them, you still get the chance to fill every stage of your funnel.
So even though targeting by intent produces higher quality leads, it's not a silver bullet. Just as gathering data around that intent, there's not one source. Just doing this doesn't solve all of your lead activities. You think it should be, as you said earlier, complementary and as part of a full sort of approach to lead generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like you're not going to rely just on inbound leads, right? You have to go outbound, right? So there's you have to do many different things. You're not going to just say, I'm going to just do this flavor of lead. You're going to do events, right? You're going to do have a marketing mix of lead generation activity, and then you can measure which ones are going to be performing the best and through the pipeline.
Yes, in your answer, you've hit on some really nice setup steps too for people who might be looking to revamp their lead generation program. So first, it's really important that B2B marketers understand scoring. What are they going to score? Why are they going to score it? And then get that baseline now so that they can see the type of lift and contribution they get from layering on an intent approach. The other piece that you hit on that I think is really important is content. And that, the content has to be compelling for people to even want to engage. Have you seen any patterns of the type of content that gets the most interest from people who are in that intent phase to buy?
Whoa, that's a good question. It depends on the audience. It depends. There's certainly, anything to deal with future trends is always something that people will be curious about. If there's certain, specific pain out in the marketplace, I mean, there's, if I'm targeting a security, maybe it's about ransomware, because, there's a lot of fear about that. If I'm targeting an HR solution, maybe it's about the turnover issue and talent acquisition issues that are out there. So making it about don't make it about your product, make it about the business problem that people have. That's what they're searching for when they go online. They're searching for solving a problem. So make it about that.
That's a great piece of advice. One comment I hear a lot is, I don't think our audience is online. And just to sort of package that, we work with a lot of B2B companies in manufacturing, construction service, a lot of people who are working with contractors and physical work, and they're not sure the owners of those companies or the buyers that work at those companies really use online. Have you found that there are certain audiences that just, however they're doing it, have avoided the internet or using Google to help solve problems?
That I think is becoming less and less of a situation, as I mean, let's face it, baby boomers are kind of retiring out of the workforce, and you really have this, the millennial generation is really the biggest chunk of the workforce right now, and moving it to senior level positions and in decision maker positions. So part of it's generational shift, and I think that it definitely is going to continue to happen, and I think there could be people that are less, but it may not, if the owner themselves is not Googling something, which I think they I would say most people are doing some of that, right? They will probably have some staff members do it, right? So they're going to be, if that senior executive is not going to do it themselves, they're probably going to give that project to someone else to go vet. Hey, this is our business problem. Go research some solutions, right? It may not even be the C-level person that's doing the researching, but they're going to delegate that to some staff.
Yes, I've seen that many times at businesses where, the leaders might not be the people who are actually sitting down and gathering all the options, but we've seen great content also help the researchers champion that, up the chain, and
Absolutely.
to have those decision maker conversations.
Yeah, I mean, any executive still going to need that comfort that this is a good decision, right? So, if that content brings in some third-party research data that says, Gartner says this, or Forrester says that, or Frost and Sullivan says this, those are the things that can help that C-level executive get comfortable with that, whatever is being recommended.
I really like the word comfort. And I was just thinking, if we're syndicating this content and we're gathering data on the triggers, what mechanisms inside the platform are serving as points of validation back to the marketer or back to the client generating the leads that, yes, these are the behaviors, or this is how we know this is a high quality lead? Like, how are you calling that out, or how is it learning those patterns?
Well, in the platform, we do have a lead score, and there's an algorithm there, obviously. But we can see, one of the things you look for, one of the analysis we do once we, like I said, use about 3 or 4 weeks worth of data, is how many people at that company, how many individual contacts at that company are searching, right? That's going to make the score go up, right? Versus if it's just one person, showing a trigger, versus 5 or 6 people showing a trigger. And then then is in that, let's call it 30 days, in that 30-day window, maybe you saw 3 or 4 or 5 triggers from the same person, right? They consumed this content. They were on this, Reddit board. They connected with somebody on LinkedIn that's associated with this topic, or they tweeted about something or was at an event about this stuff. So that's going to give it a higher score, right? Because now okay, it's not just a single signal, it's multiple signals over a short period of time, or it's multiple people in one organization. So those are the way you can prioritize.
That is super interesting. And I think another concept that you're hitting on that's important for marketers to understand is it's really rare that decisions are made in isolation. And that, there could be 6 to 8 people that are part of this process. And if you're able to engage more people in the decision-making process, then the more likely it is that you're helping to solve their problem. Because again, that's what the content should be doing. How then do you take it from helping to solve a critical problem for a group of decision makers into getting in front of them with a sales pitch or a product pitch?
If it's a lead generation campaign, and we're the deliverable to the client is the lead, then it's up there to their SDR BD organization to activate that. We have our outbound BDR organizations, SD organization as well, that clients hire us to generate appointments for them. In that case, we're going to take that intent list, really prioritize it, even further, right? And then we're going to give that to our folks and again, use that signal, whatever that signal topic is, to be, their lead-in messaging on the phone, and or whether it's an email outreach. And then we have literally gotten people on the phone and they have said, "It's funny you're calling me about this topic. We were just discussing this. And what are you, a mind reader?" You do get those kind of responses in our phone outreach.
I love that example. As you were saying that, a light bulb went off in my head that if we are getting and contacting higher quality leads, now we're also getting better lists that can feed into our other lead tactics. So if we do have campaigns running on paid search or retargeting or social, we're taking these leads that have now been validated with intent and trying to target more people like them, to supplement the overall program and maximize our visibility, which is really exciting because it really creates almost like a circle of value.
Yeah.
You start at one point, which is your static data and who do we want to target, and then start gathering more dynamic data that's constantly changing, and you let it nurture over time. But then the result is really, a circle where what you are putting in and the longer it sort of sits and nurtures can feed in through your whole program.
Yeah, and these intent campaigns should be evergreen, right? They should be. You should just keep that. Once we can certainly tweak everything that's in the intent platform. We can change keywords and trigger, hashtags and all those kind of things. But, because who's in market to this month will change in, a couple months, right? So you want to always know who's kind of going up that adoption curve and you know, and looking to you know, someone that's maybe in the buyer's journey. And
I think that's
obviously,
an awesome point.
if you're running it for a long period of time, right? If I just run it, if I start it now, I get a lot of data, right? I get a lot of signals because I just started running it. I don't know which of these people are, how deep they are in the buyer's journey, right?
Mhm.
But if you're running it for 12 months and all of a sudden on month 10, I see new companies and new contacts. Well, they're new to the journey. They must be early in the journey, right? Whereas if I've seen this person, you know, or this company with signals for 3 or 4 months, okay, they're progressing in their journey, right?
That's really interesting. I feel like a lot of B2B marketers do things in sprints, you know, and sort of it's not even that old school. Something we did before the pandemic was align things around trade shows. You know, how are we getting more people to the booth? What are we doing with the people at the booth? But again, as this is layered on, you can use what you're doing in either physical shows or virtual shows, just a part of that content. And that could be another signal of intent is, you know, are they showing up virtually? Are they engaging with the content around those special events to really even maximize your sales presence? I imagine that your programs make marketers finally look like the rock stars they are to sales teams. So maybe
That is
not.
absolutely what we want.
Yeah. Are there things that marketers ask for from a reporting standpoint, from a data standpoint, that really helps strengthen that sales marketing alignment?
What do they ask for? I think the you know, marketers are very inquisitive, very curious people by nature, I think. So there are a lot of questions. I think it's you know, and most of marketers nowadays are very data driven as well. So there's a lot of data questions, conversion questions, those kind of things. But I think the alignment with sales, this intent really is kind of it can really be kind of a glue, because you know, what does sales want? They want good appointments. They want to advance somebody into the sales pipeline. And if you can give them those better appointments or better conversations, those prospects are more engaged in the topic, they're going to advance into sales pipeline. And you know, you're really, you know, making a big impact on the sales team at that point. So I do think it can be a glue. And you can, you know, whether if it's this SDR organization is kind of that middle point where you know, the lead flow goes to them before it goes to an account executive. You're arming them with better tools too, better leads. So I think you can really win over the sales team, you know, with some of these marketing tactics.
I think that is really the goal of most B2B marketers, because it's like you're always in service of the sales team, but it's such a massive challenge to generate quality leads and leads they actually want. So this has been a really valuable conversation. And I think anyone listening should really take a step back and say, where can intent play a role in my lead generation program, knowing that it's not a silver bullet, but it certainly feeds in to all of the tactics that marketers are probably currently running and could even make them stronger. If any of the listeners wanted to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
They can go to our website, greenleads.com. They can reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to have any conversations with folks. It's mike.farrell at greenleads.com. So Farrell. I always say Will Farrell spells it wrong. Yeah, be happy to, jump. I'm open most mornings from 7 to 9 before my meeting starts. So I'm open to have any meetings with anybody to talk more about their business and how we can help.
That's great. I have one last question. I almost forgot, and it's the most important question. What is something that you really wish your clients were doing right now as it relates to intent data that they're not taking advantage of?
To use it multiple ways, right? I think we all kind of get in this linear process-oriented mindset sometimes, and you take it and they give it to, they have us activated for appointments, or they take it and run a single play, a single campaign. Is number one, keep it going for a long period of time, but then find multiple touches you can make with those, because it's still, like you said, it's not a silver bullet. You still have to touch those prospects multiple times. So it's just not a one-time touch, but there's some level of activity on their part that indicates they're in the buyer's journey. So stick with them with multiple different touches to really activate that lead.
I love that, because it gives strategic marketers the opportunity to make their strategy more productive. I feel like some of the best marketers know it has to be a connected journey, but they might not have the right data or enough data, or these evergreen campaigns that are sort of pumping in the juice to tell them where are the fish that are going to bite. That is fantastic. All right, we already talked about where people can reach you. It's greenleads.com. And then if you want to listen to more Tenlo Radio episodes from Leader Generation, you can visit tenlo.com, click on podcasts, and you'll see more conversations about how to generate, measure, and maximize leads. Mike, thanks so much for being our guest today. This was a fun conversation.
Thanks, Tessa.
And super productive. I'm excited to apply this myself. And yeah, I hope to hear from you soon that lots of people have begun to incorporate this into their campaigns.
Yes, we'll be in touch.
All right.